This video is brought to you by Blessed Be God Boutique, maker of Catholic fashionable apparel, handmade accessories, and more. If there's one thing the modernists in apostate Rome hate, it's criticism of the dear leader from within the hierarchy of the church. Unless they're doing it themselves, of course. If you've ever wondered why more bishops who still have the Catholic faith, haven't stepped up and openly told the truth about the reign of Francis and its effects on the church, it's because of cases like the one I'm going to show you today. Our story focuses on one Bishop Vitus Honder, a Swiss bishop who was given permission by Rome 4 years ago to retire and live with the Society of St. Pius X, who seemed to be in the news a lot lately, largely for positive reasons. And today is no different, at least if you're interested in stories that support the undeniable fact that a growing number of bishops are becoming bolder in their resistance to the apostasy in the church that appears to be engineered by design from the various highest levels of the alleged hierarchy. And when a bishop speaks out, one thing is for certain. The auxiliary forces for the apostates running the church will try to create the illusion of a popular demand for the modernists in power to act in a desired way, in this case, the punishing of a dissident voice. It's a form of astroturfing we're used to seeing in secular politics, but it is a practice that is alive and well, unfortunately, in the post-conciliar church. Why is Bishop Vitus Honder the target of these attacks? Because in late April he was speaking with SSPX seminarians, and in a video that made its way to YouTube, and he had some rather harsh words to say. LifeSite News quoted him saying the following, quote, "When discussing the role of Pope Francis, he stresses that this pontificate is a, quote, pontificate of rupture. It is a break with tradition. Not only does this pope often criticize tradition and those adhering to it, he, quote, undertakes acts that are clearly contrary to tradition. Here, the bishop mentions explicitly syncretistic ritual acts, such as in Canada, which LifeSite News also reported. Pointing to Pope Francis's documents Traditionis Custodes and Desiderio Desideravi, Honder says, quote, the pope wants to eradicate the traditional Roman liturgy. Moreover, Bishop Honder sees this current pope as an, quote, outspoken supporter of the so-called world religion. For many faithful, the prelate adds, this is a stumbling block, end quote. Francis as a pope of rupture isn't exactly a new accusation, even from some bishops. But what is interesting is that in the same article, the bishop also suggests that Paul VI was such a pontiff as well. There's heavy implications there. Bishop Honder has been a likely target of modernist aggression since he was granted permission in 2019 to retire with the SSPX. In May of 2019, the SSPX and Bishop Honder issued the following joint announcement. Quote, according to an intention that he stated long ago, Bishop Honder is retiring to a house of the Society of St. Pius X. The one sole purpose of this step is to dedicate himself to prayer and silence, to celebrate the traditional Mass exclusively, and to work for tradition, the only way of renewing the Church. The Society of St. Pius X appreciates Bishop Honder's courageous decision and rejoices to be able to provide him with the spiritual and priestly surroundings that he desires so deeply. May this example be followed by others, so as to, quote, restore everything in Christ, end quote. I vaguely remember hearing about this 4 years ago, and now it's suddenly back in the news. And I suppose a cynical person could criticize the bishop for not remaining silent as that press release stated, but the truth of the matter is that prior to his statement that was given to SSPX seminarians and recorded on video and placed on YouTube, and which then gave it to the general public, the world had heard precious little from the bishop. He had been living largely a quiet life with the SSPX, offering the traditional Mass and working with seminarians far away from the limelight. It's highly likely that these controversial comments were probably never intended to be made to the public initially, but that's not good enough for apostate Rome. Cath.cz, a hyper-modernist rag out of Europe, is demanding that Francis punish this retired bishop somehow for saying what is unequivocally true about Francis, because he is a, quote, pontiff of rupture. So, headline from that same website, Vitus Honder sharply criticizes the Pope. Vatican must intervene. The Bishop Emeritus of Chur, Vitus Honder, sharply criticizes the Pope and accuses him of a pontificate of rupture. Doing so, he crosses a border. It is now time for an apostolic inquiry, says Charles Martig in his commentary on the Honder case. You know, it's kind of weird, but it never occurs to anyone that taking a position like that for anyone in a position of power to punish their political or ideological opponents who have no institutional power for simply Making comments is an act that will be seen as tyrannical by the kinds of onlookers you want to win over to your side. That's how it is in the modern world. Such articles are tone-deaf in their brazen stupidity. But yet the ideologues in power keep making these kinds of arguments. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a good case here. Let's let Mr. Mastig make his case. It's a clumsy case, though, starting with a caricature of the traditional Mass that we get tired of hearing about. The priest with his back to the people, oh, the horror of horrors. Mumbling in a forgotten language, oh no, that kind of nonsense. Followed by more nonsense before the author gets to his point, which is a denial of statements made on 24 different occasions that the SSPX are not in schism. Rome has said 24 times in the last few decades that they are not in schism, that they are fully Catholic, that you can go to Mass with them, donate money to their causes, and you're fine. Francis said that himself recently, by the way. Quote, "It is a scandal that a former Swiss bishop is leaving the Roman Catholic Church and defecting to the Society of St. Pius. This fraternity, which goes by the acronym FSSPX, is outside the Church. Honder is now playing the crosser. He tries to throw his weight on the scales as Bishop Emeritus of Chur. The title of the video is The Open Wound with Bishop Vitus Honder. The Vatican should stop that. The damage that Hondar has done to the Swiss Church is already great enough. The fact that he has been living in a boys' institute of the Pius Brothers in Vangs SG since his retirement as Bishop of Chur in 2019 and now openly appears in public at Pius Brothers festivities speaks volumes. With his video, he is now definitely outing himself as a supporter of the Pius Brotherhood. Who could end this scandal? Nuncio Martin Krebs. He is currently working intensively on the succession in the Archdiocese of Vaduz. The successor to Wolfgang Haas must be regulated. A problematic bishop is also acting here. At the same time, the process of choosing a bishop in St. Gallen is pending. And in Chur, too, Bishop Josef Bonnemann will reach the age of 75 in July 2023, when he will offer his resignation. That is a lot of work for Nuncio Martin Krebs. Does he also want to deal with the traditionalist troublemaker Vitus Hondar? The only viable way is an apostolic inquiry. Here, the nuncio, Martin Krebs, plays a central role. Instead of accusing popular pastors of integrity of quote-unquote liturgical abuse and having this checked by the Vatican authorities, the traditionalists should rather be put on the Church's radar because they are dangerous. They cause unrest and divide the Church. A clear signal is needed now. As long as the Vatican allows Vitus Hondar to work under the title of Bishop Emeritus of Chur, the Church authorities will remain untrustworthy. Effective sanctions are needed now." End quote. You know, Charles Mardick should be a YouTuber. That's the kind of stuff you expect here on YouTube made by guys like me. But effective how? How is he going to do anything? The bishop is retired and living with the SSPX with the permission of Rome and has been doing that for 4 years now. What can they do besides take his pension from him? But notice something. The bishops speaking out at a time when the Swiss church authorities are needing to replace bishops in St. Gallen, as well as a few other high-profile dioceses. Yes, St. Gallen, that's St. Gallen of the St. Gallen Club of Ted McCarrick fame. You know, allegedly, St. Gallen is the meeting place of the Insiders Club of the Roman Curia who made the Francis pontificate possible, and who have reportedly been meeting in recent months again with new members, to do their part to have their work continued after Francis retires or passes away. You know, for some reason, they see Bishop Hondar as being an impediment to all of that. All because he gave a talk to SSPX seminarians and made a video on YouTube that probably wouldn't have gotten that much attention had, his opponents not blown it all up. He spoke his mind on the state of the church. Plenty of bishops do that. There's not exactly a shortage of priests, by the way, making videos of that kind on YouTube, many of whom openly criticize Francis in ways that make Bishop Hondar's words seem relatively tame by comparison. I mean, have you ever seen Bishop Athanasius Schneider speak? What's really going on here? Are the modernists afraid of the bishop's possible influence in the succession of bishops in the key dioceses in Switzerland, especially St. Gallen? I'd suggest people keep an eye on the happenings in St. Gallen and watch who becomes the next bishop of that critical diocese. These modernists seem especially upset, given the timing of all of this, even though there is nothing in substance different said by Bishop Hondar than that said by Bishop Athanasius Schneider. And he says it on a routine basis and writes books that get published worldwide, saying the same things. But I'm curious about what you think about all of this, so let me know in the comments, please. Do you think people are making too big a deal out of the bishop's words? Should we even care that much? Are the modernists just trying to intimidate the retired bishop into silence? Do you think Francis tires of his media allies as much as he does his adversaries? Let me know what you think of all this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't, it does help. Sharing this on social media helps a lot too. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.